Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we cut through the noise to bring you the most potent insights from the sources you need. Today, for all you future counselors and psychologists out there, we're plunging into a pivotal stage of the helping process, the action stage. Our mission is to transform the detailed frameworks from Clara E. Hill's Helping Skills, the fifth edition, into clear, actionable understanding so you can guide clients toward real, lasting change.
Indeed. We've spent time understanding how helpers guide clients through exploration and insight, helping them uncover the roots of their challenges. But as the old Japanese proverb says, vision without action is a daydream. Action without vision is a nightmare.
Right.
Insight alone, as valuable as it is, doesn't always translate into change. This is where the action tasks come in. They're the critical bridge between knowing and doing. And what's truly fascinating here is how these aren't about merely giving advice, but about a carefully tailored collaborative journey.
And that's exactly why this deep dive is so crucial. Whether your client is wrestling with stress, trying to break old habits, navigating tough conversations, or facing a monumental life decision, well, we're going to equip you with a shortcut. A shortcut to being well-informed on the essential helper skills that turn understanding into tangible growth. Think of it as your practical guide to empowering clients to do something different. So let's set the stage. We've done all that deep exploration, facilitated powerful insights. Why is moving to an action stage so absolutely vital now? What's the psychological imperative?
Well, the imperative is simple. Clients often come to us not just for understanding, but because they're stuck. They know intellectually maybe what their problem is, but they lack the tools, confidence, or specific behaviors to change it. Take Debbie, for instance, from the text. She had profound insights into how her childhood trauma contributed to her homelessness. But insight didn't immediately conjure up a new apartment or a job application, right? She needed concrete skills and a plan to avoid a repeat situation. This stage pulls together various helper skills, open questions, probes, information, direct guidance, even strategic disclosure to build those practical pathways forward. For beginning helpers, like many of you listening, we're focusing on 4 core tasks: relaxation, behavior change, behavioral rehearsal, and decision-making.
So it's about moving beyond the aha moment to the now what. But I imagine this isn't a rigid one-size-fits-all checklist you just tick off, is it? Like step 1, step 2.
Not at all, no. The text stresses that action work is inherently creative and rarely linear. Every client is unique, and their readiness for action varies immensely. Some might be eager to move quickly, while others might hit a wall and need to cycle back to more exploration if a particular step triggers new insights or, resistances. These tasks are best viewed as flexible options in your toolkit, always adapted to the individual client's needs, and frankly, your own authentic style as a helper.
Right, adapting is key. Okay, let's jump into that toolkit then, starting with what often feels like the most immediate need for many clients, managing overwhelm. Our first action task is relaxation. Why is calming the mind such a foundational skill for change?
Because anxiety and stress are often profound barriers. Barriers to engagement, barriers to change. When a client is in a state of high physiological arousal, their capacity for processing new information, making rational choices, or even remembering what you've discussed is severely diminished. Research, dating way back to Jacobson, clearly demonstrates that muscle relaxation directly reduces anxiety. It's often a prerequisite. A relaxed client is simply more open, more present, and more capable of benefiting from other interventions.
That makes total sense. So when would a helper know it's the right moment to introduce relaxation techniques? What are the key indicators?
You look for clear signs. A client presenting with simple phobias, think fear of flying or spiders, or maybe extreme test anxiety, social anxiety, or even just general tension evident in their body language, like fidgeting or rapid speech during a session. However, here's a crucial caution. For clients who are paranoid, perhaps fear losing control or experience delusions, relaxation techniques can sometimes be counterproductive, maybe even frightening. Always assess carefully.
That's a really vital distinction. Okay, so for those who can benefit, how do we actually go about teaching this skill in a session? Walk us through it.
Okay. It starts by helping the client identify and describe specific situations of stress or anxiety. You're not just looking for them to say, I'm stressed, You want to really probe for the sensory details. When does it happen? What does it feel like in their body? Get specific.
Right. The specifics matter.
Then you agree on relaxation or mindfulness as a desired outcome. You explain the physiological incompatibility of relaxation with anxiety. Consent is absolutely key here. Never impose it. Make sure they're on board.
So once they're on board, what are some of the go-to methods for actually teaching relaxation? What does the text suggest?
Hill's text highlights a few good ones. Benson's relaxation method involves two simple components: the repetition of a word, phrase, or sound, and passively letting go of intrusive thoughts, gently returning to that focus word or sound. You might guide them, saying something like, get comfortable, close your eyes, imagine a warm, heavy sand slowly filling your body. Focusing on their breath, repeating a chosen word like peace on exhale.
I really appreciate that visualization of sand. It's incredibly grounding. Feels calming just hearing it. What about deep muscle relaxation, Jacobson's method?
Yeah, that's Jacobson's. It's about systematically tensing and then releasing different muscle groups. It's a powerful way to make clients aware of muscle tension they might not even notice. And then the profound feeling of release afterwards. You'd guide them. Clench your fist tightly for a few seconds, notice the tension, now completely release it, stretching your fingers. You'd speak softly and slowly through the process.
Okay. And the ever-popular mindfulness, how does that fit in?
Right.
Mindfulness. As John Kabat-Zinn defines it, it's awareness that comes from attending non-judgmentally to one's experience in the moment. A classic teaching tool is the raisin exercise. Clients examine it, smell it, feel it, slowly bite and savor it, extending that present moment awareness. But the key insight here for new helpers is processing potential client reactions. Some might feel vulnerable doing this or worry about doing it right. Normalizing these feelings is crucial.
Absolutely. So once they've grasped the technique in the session, what's next? You don't just leave it there.
No,
Yeah.
definitely not. You then encourage them to imagine implementing relaxation or mindfulness in specific situations outside of helping. This is guided imagery, essentially, a form of systematic desensitization. Picture them imagining their stressful commute and then consciously applying the breathing technique they learned, or even applying it in the session if they start to feel anxious during your conversation.
Ah, practicing it right there. That builds confidence, I bet. And then the practice, or homework, as the text puts it. Exactly. Assigning relaxation practice, maybe just 5–10 minutes, once or twice daily, in a quiet space helps clients build the neural pathways. It helps them induce relaxation more quickly and effectively over time. The real challenge, though, isn't just giving the instruction. It's anticipating and troubleshooting potential client resistance or feelings of failure if they miss a day or struggle.
Which leads us neatly into follow-up.
Yes. In subsequent sessions, you non-judgmentally discuss their experience. What worked? What didn't? How did it feel? Be ready to troubleshoot, adapt the technique, or even gently drop the exercise if it's not serving them. It's about building an integrated skill, not just checking off an assignment. This iterative process is what helps clients manage both immediate and ongoing stress effectively.
Okay, moving on. Many clients walk through our doors because they want to shift specific behaviors, maybe procrastination, overeating, avoiding difficult tasks. This is where our second task, behavior change, comes in. What kinds of problems is this approach best suited for?
This model is really ideal for interpersonal problems, behaviors largely within a person's own control. Think habits, routines, patterns like procrastination or diet. It's a collaborative, structured journey of exploring the problem, assessing their readiness for change, generating options together, and creating implementable plans. But again, like relaxation, it's not a rigid formula. Flexibility is key.
So how do we begin to translate this into actionable steps for our listeners, the students learning these skills?
Okay, first, we start by helping the client clarify the specific problem. We need to focus on observable behaviors, not just, I want to feel better, but say, I want to study 2 hours more per week. It's usually best to tackle one problem at a time, too. Keep it focused. The most powerful tool here for new helpers is probing for the ABCs, the antecedents, what triggers the behaviors themselves, what exactly happens, and the consequences, what happens immediately after.
3 ABCs. Got it.
Yeah. And if the problem feels vague, behavioral monitoring can be invaluable. Like Joetta in the text, who tracked her eating habits and was surprised to discover unconscious snacking patterns. It provides concrete data.
So gathering that data is crucial. Then step 2, we explore the idea of action for this specific problem. But you mentioned earlier, clients can be scared of change.
Oh, absolutely. The misery they know can feel safer than the unknown of change. It's counterintuitive, but common. So never assume readiness. You need to provide a safe space to genuinely discuss the benefits and the drawbacks of changing versus not changing. Explore both sides. This often uncovers underlying values conflicts, like Yuyan's struggle with drinking versus her religious values. Use open questions. What would change mean for you? What keeps you from taking that step?
And if they're really stuck, deeply conflicted.
The two-chair technique can be remarkably insightful here. Imagine a client struggling with persistent nail biting. In one chair, they voice the part that defends the habit, in the other, the part that wants to stop. The text gives an example where a client had this revelation that her nail biting was a subtle way to get back at her father. It brings unconscious motives to light. And here's a critical point for you as helpers. Choosing not to change is a valid outcome. Sandra, for example, realized playing video games actually helped her relax, and she decided not to change that. Your role isn't to be invested in their choice, but in their self-discovery and self-determination.
That's a really profound distinction. Okay, so once that exploration is done, you assess previous change attempts and resources. Why is that important?
Well, it isn't just respectful of their efforts, though it is that too. It's diagnostic. What has the client tried before? What worked, even a little? What didn't work? And most importantly, why? This helps uncover internal factors like their motivation level, their self-confidence, and also external factors like social support systems or systemic obstacles like discrimination they might face. This step is basically gathering intelligence to build a more effective plan this time around.
Makes sense. Learn from the past. Then, the client's understanding might shift, leading to clarifying or reconceptualizing the problem.
Precisely. After that deep dive, the problem might look different. Chris, from the text, initially wanted to slow down her eating all the time, but realized through discussion her real struggle was only during Saturday dinners with family. Or Yuyun's drinking wasn't just about the alcohol itself, it was ultimately linked to workplace stress. This refined understanding helps tailor the action plan much more effectively.
Okay, now for the creative part. Generating options together, the brainstorming phase.
Yes, think expansively. Brainstorm lots of ideas, even the ones that sound a bit silly at first. Maybe set a 5-minute timer to just get ideas flowing. As a helper, you can gently offer suggestions, maybe grandma's rule, doing a new behavior before a fun one, or Premack's principle, pairing a low-frequency behavior with a high-frequency one. You could even disclose your own strategies sometimes, like, when I have trouble remembering things, I make a list. It offers possibilities without being prescriptive.
I like that. Sharing appropriately. With a list of options generated, you then evaluate and choose options.
Right. Now you systematically assess each idea with the client. Is it specific? Is it realistic? Is it within the client's control? Crucially, does it align with their values? Ask questions like, what do you like or dislike about this option? How confident do you feel you could actually do this? Focus on changing oneself, not trying to change others, and critically ensure the goals are realistic, losing 50 pounds in a month. Probably not realistic or healthy. If there's significant reluctance here, hesitation, that's a signal.
A signal to maybe go back.
Exactly. Cycle back to deeper exploration or insight work. Don't force the action.
Okay. After choosing an option, you determine reinforcers. What does that mean?
Reinforcers are basically rewards. They must be highly individualized and realistic. What's genuinely rewarding for this specific client, it could be a hot bath, an hour playing a video game, listening to their favorite music. The client identifies what truly motivates them.
Got it. And now, the rubber hits the road. Implementing the action plan. This is where the art of the baby step comes in, you mentioned.
Absolutely. The real insight here for you as new helpers is the art of the baby step. We're talking changes so small they almost feel inconsequential, yet they're powerful precisely because they build momentum without triggering overwhelming resistance or burnout. Small wins build confidence. You meticulously map out how and when the new behavior will happen and proactively plan for adversities what might get in the way. Focus on making behaviors observable, specific. Apply reinforcement as soon as possible after the behavior. Encourage self-reinforcement too. Charlene, the depressed homemaker in the text, didn't aim to run a marathon initially. Her plan was simply a short walk with her husband and monitoring her calories, small, attainable shifts that led to significant change over time.
That's encouraging. Small steps matter.
Yeah.
And finally, checking on progress and modifying assignments. Because perfection is rarely the first outcome.
Precisely. Problems are normal, expected even. You non-judgmentally explore what worked, what didn't, and why, then modify the plan together. View modifications not as failures, but as natural course corrections. Learning opportunities. When relapses occur, and they often will, it's crucial to help clients learn from the slip rather than internalize it as a total failure or relapse. Frame it as data. Sam, who wanted to join a support group for his cancer diagnosis, didn't immediately find the right fit. The helper guided him to modify his approach, explore other groups, rather than just giving up. Balanced feedback and addressing any feelings the client might have of being pushed are paramount here.
That's a really comprehensive framework. The emphasis on baby steps and not being overly invested in the client's specific choice feels particularly empowering. especially for new helpers learning the ropes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sometimes it's not just about what to change, but how to say or do it, especially in those tricky social situations. This is where our third task, behavioral rehearsal, becomes invaluable.
Exactly right. This task is about teaching clients specific skills for more adaptive interpersonal responses. While it's useful for many scenarios, like practicing for job interviews, the text focuses quite a bit on assertiveness. Assertiveness being, the ability to stand up for oneself without infringing on others' rights, as Alberti and Emmons describe it. It's not about always getting your way, but communicating effectively, avoiding both passivity and aggression.
So if a client consistently struggles to speak up or maybe tends to explode aggressively, this is the tool. How do we begin this process?
You start by assessing the behavior in a specific situation. Ask for a detailed example, the last time they felt stuck or reacted in a way they regretted. Then critically, you role play it. The client plays themselves, and you, the helper, play the other person involved. This allows you to observe their nonverbal cues, eye contact, posture, voice tone, and it lets the client experience the dynamic in a safe space. Afterwards, you ask for their self-evaluation. How did that feel?
That initial role play sounds like it could be incredibly revealing.
Well,
Okay, next you determine goals with the client.
yes, specific, realistic goals for how they want to behave differently in that type of situation. Maybe I want to calmly tell my son to take out the garbage without yelling.
Mm.
You also consider their values and rights like privacy and self-determination and help them anticipate potential consequences, positive and negative, of their new assertive behavior.
And similar to the behavior change model, you generate and evaluate possibilities for how to handle the situation assertively.
Exactly. Brainstorming different ways to approach it, then discussing the feasibility and desirability of each option in their specific context.
Then the helper actually provides a model. You demonstrate it.
Yes. This is where you, the helper, step into the client's role to demonstrate the new behavior. For assertiveness, some key principles are: maybe start with easier assertive behaviors first. Show empathy for the other person's perspective, if appropriate. Avoid lengthy justifications, and if needed, employ the broken record technique, that calm, persistent repetition of your core message without getting sidetracked. After you model it, you ask the client what resonated, what they liked or disliked about your approach, and how they might adapt it to sound like them.
Makes sense. After the modeling, it's the client's turn again. Role play and receive feedback in coaching.
Right. The client now plays themselves again, practicing the new approach, and you play the other person. Crucially, when giving feedback, start with honest, positive feedback first. Notice anything they did well, even small improvements. Then offer corrective feedback on just one or two specific, manageable points. Don't overwhelm them. You might repeat these role plays several times until the client gains confidence. And if anxiety gets too high during practice, you might need to detour back to relaxation techniques or even some cognitive restructuring around their fears.
Good point about managing anxiety.
Mhm.
And the final steps, implement the new behaviors in the real world and check on progress, are basically the same as steps 8 and 9 in behavior change.
Correct. It's about taking that practice skill out of the therapy room and into their life, and then coming back to review what happened, what worked, what didn't, and refining it together.
The San example from the text, the one wanting to mend things with his ex-wife, really illustrates this well, doesn't it? His old passivity kept creeping back in. How did behavioral rehearsal help him specifically?
Sam's initial role play revealed this almost whiny, childlike tone pattern he'd unconsciously developed way back in his relationship with his mother. It just came out automatically with his ex-wife. What's fascinating here is that by identifying that ingrained pattern in the role play, and then the helper modeling a firm but not nasty assertive statement, Sammy could literally practice a new adult-to-adult communication style. He rehearsed it. Even when his ex-wife in the role play was initially hesitant or pushed back, Sam practiced staying assertive and suggesting couples counseling, rather than just shutting down like he used to. This isn't just about learning lines, it's about building confidence and actually forging new neural pathways through repeated supported practice. It truly translates that insight about his pattern into concrete, different action.
That's powerful, seeing how insight plus practice leads to change. Okay, finally, our fourth action task, decision-making. Clients often face these huge, overwhelming life choices: which job to take, whether to go to graduate school, where to live. This provides a structured way to navigate those, right?
Absolutely. This task helps clients articulate all their options, clarify their often unconscious values, and then systematically evaluate each option against those values. While some might find it a bit, mechanistic or formulaic at first glance, many clients find this clear, step-by-step process incredibly helpful for complex choices that feel paralyzing otherwise. It brings structure to the chaos.
Let's break down this process, maybe using the best example from the text, the one considering retirement. First, you articulate the options.
Right. The helper collaborates with the client to list all possible choices. Sometimes you might need to help them generate options they hadn't even considered. Bess, for instance, was weighing three main retirement options: retire early at 55 and travel, retire later at 65 and volunteer, or just stay at her current job indefinitely. These are typically recorded on a simple grid or worksheet.
Okay, got the options down. Then comes clarifying values. This sounds like the real heart of the exercise, getting to what matters.
It really is. The client identifies up to, say, 10 relevant values, desires, or needs related to this specific decision. The helper asks evocative questions like, what would you hope to feel if you chose this path? Or what's truly important to you in this next phase? Bess's values included things like travel, intellectual stimulation, time with her spouse, connection with friends, financial security, being near her children, and finding meaning in life. These get added to the grid, too.
That's quite a list. After identifying them, you weight the relative importance of those values. How does that work?
Yeah, this is key. You ask the client to assign a unique numerical weight, maybe from 1 to 10, to each value, reflecting how important it is to them in the context of this decision. No ties allowed. Forces prioritization. Bess, for example, rated intellectual stimulation a 9, very important, but friends only a 2, less critical for this particular decision. This forces a conscious prioritization, making explicit what might otherwise just be a vague feeling.
Okay, values weighted.
Yeah.
And then you rate the options against those weighted values.
Exactly. For each option, like retire at 55, the client rates how likely it is to fulfill each value, like travel, using a scale maybe A-3 for very unlikely, up to +3 for very likely. You discuss their reasoning for each rating. Then, it's simple multiplication. The rating times the value weight gives a score for that value within that option. You add up the scores for each option. Bess's initial scores, after doing the math, showed retiring at 65 and working indefinitely as the highest scoring options numerically.
But here's where it gets really interesting, right? The numbers aren't necessarily the final word.
Yeah.
The next step is crucial. Evaluate the results and revise the weightings.
This is the critical insight, often the most surprising part for the client. The key here is the client's emotional reaction to the numbers. How do they feel seeing those results? If they're disappointed or surprised by the highest scoring option, I thought I wanted X more than Y, it signals that something is off. Maybe a value wasn't weighted correctly, or a rating was inaccurate, or a deeper value was missed entirely. This disappointment becomes data. It prompts further exploration and revision of the options, the values, or the initial ratings. Bess, seeing her initial scores, had an aha moment. She realized being near family was far more important than her initial weighting reflected, so she went back and revised her ratings. The grid isn't prescriptive, it's a mirror for self-discovery. It facilitates clarification.
So the numbers are really just a tool, a structured way to uncover those deeper, maybe unconscious values and help them align their choice with their authentic self. And finally, you follow up on this.
Yes, absolutely. In subsequent sessions, you check in on their feelings about the decision they're leaning towards, any anxieties that came up, or any new insights gained from the process. Bess, for example, after using the grid, realized she and her husband actually had quite different values regarding retirement, which they hadn't fully discussed. This realization led them to consider marital counseling. The decision-making grid opened up a whole new avenue for growth and communication for them.
Wow. This structured approach provides such a concrete framework for what can feel like an overwhelming, murky choice. It really seems to help bring unconscious values right to the surface. Now, we've talked a lot today about providing tools and suggestions, what the sources call directives, giving advice, guiding action. But here's where we get into a truly fascinating cultural nuance from your source material. There's a research summary mentioned about how directives or suggestions are perceived differently across cultures. Tell us about that.
Yeah, this raises a really vital question for all helpers, especially in our diverse world. Do these interventions operate universally? Does giving advice land the same way everywhere? A 2012 study by Duan and colleagues in China looked specifically at therapist directives. Now, the common assumption, often generalized perhaps too broadly to Asian cultures, is that clients expect direct solutions and advice from experts, much like seeking medical advice. So based on that assumption, one might expect them to readily embrace the action stage and really want, even expect, the therapist to tell them what to do.
Okay, that's the assumption. And what did the findings actually reveal about this?
Well, the Chinese clients in the study reported receiving about 2 directives per session, mostly focused on cognitive or behavioral changes. And yes, they often reported implementing them, especially if they seemed relatively easy to do. But here's the kicker, what's truly striking. The client actually implementing the directive wasn't directly correlated with a better treatment outcome.
Really? So doing the suggestion didn't predict success. What did?
Instead, the study found that the more therapists reported giving directives, the higher the clients rated the working alliance, their connection and trust with the therapist, and the higher they rated the overall outcome of therapy.
Wow. That's a profound finding. So the directives themselves were less about the content of the advice, maybe, and more about building the relationship, about the therapist showing they cared.
Precisely, that seems to be the interpretation. For Chinese clients in this specific study, receiving directives seemed to signal that the therapist was a knowledgeable expert who was genuinely invested, actively true to help them solve their problem. This act of giving direction strengthened the therapeutic alliance, which then became a more significant predictor of positive outcomes than whether the specific behavioral changes were actually made. This research really challenges us to understand that while a directive might not always be followed to the letter, its presence, the act of offering it, can profoundly impact rapport and trust within certain cultural contexts.
And that, I imagine, means we absolutely cannot generalize these interventions across all cultures or even assume a one-size-fits-all approach for all individuals within a given culture. It's a powerful reminder of the deep cultural sensitivity required in practice, isn't it?
Absolutely. It highlights the critical importance of not just what intervention you use, but how it is perceived and received within a client's unique cultural framework and individual understanding. Context matters immensely.
What a deep dive into the action stage.
Yeah.
We've journeyed from calming anxieties with relaxation techniques, to systematically reshaping behaviors with structured plans, to practicing assertiveness through behavioral rehearsal, and navigating complex life choices through value-aligned decision-making. The crucial takeaway for you as aspiring helpers listening today seems clear. These aren't rigid rules to memorize, but flexible, collaborative steps, always tailored to each unique client you encounter.
Exactly. And remember, the helping process is dynamic, it's fluid. You'll frequently cycle back to exploration or insight work as new challenges or feelings emerge during the action stage. It's not strictly linear. Your role is that of a skilled, empathetic guide, offering tools and support, while always empowering clients to make choices that are authentically best for them. The ultimate goal isn't just to fix immediate problems, but really to foster enduring growth, resilience, and self-efficacy in your clients.
So what does this all mean for your journey into practice? These action tasks are incredibly powerful tools in your toolkit for sure. But your true mastery, your effectiveness, will lie in your ability to adapt them, to genuinely connect with and understand your client's unique story, their readiness for change, and their cultural context. Keep practicing these skills, keep learning, keep reflecting, and keep asking yourself, how can I best empower this individual to move from understanding to tangible, positive change, always respecting their path and their inherent power?
Well said. The journey of becoming a skilled, culturally sensitive helper is indeed one of continuous learning, humility, and refinement.
That's it for this deep dive. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you feel a little more well-informed and ready to help your future clients turn insight into meaningful action.